All right, so everybody, look me in the eyes and bear with me, all right? Because this one's a roller coaster. What we are looking at here is a 3 versus 3 tournament, not quite conquest, but a little bit conquest. All right, bear with me. So each team has brought 5 decks, and in those decks, they are allowed to overlap each region one time, but they are not allowed to play the same regional composition twice. For example, you can play Freljord twice, but you can't bring 2 Freljord Shadow Isle decks. Each team has to play each player within the first 3 games, and then for games 4 and 5, if it comes to that, you can play any players that you want, but you can't have the same player play games 4 and 5. So everybody gets to play, one person gets to play once, 2 people get to play twice if you are going to a game 5. Once you win with a deck, your team is not allowed to play it anymore. If you have lost with a deck, any other teammate can go ahead and pick it up. Once you have won with 3 of your decks, then you are declared the winner of the match. And because this is an invitational, they are straight away into the top 8, so this will be a single elimination event. Hey everyone, Boulevard here. Just wanted to quickly pull you aside and apologize. This cast was riddled with technical difficulties. There's a couple of segments where like 5 seconds of footage at a time is going to be lost to the ether. You can kind of infer what happened during that time, but you know, if it seems like words cut out or there's a little bit of skipping around, that kind of is what happened. I do apologize for that, but it was still a great top 8 match, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. But I did want to warn you, if it seems like there was a cut or something like that, it's because we did run into technical difficulties and lost the footage. But yeah, go ahead and enjoy. All right, Frostbite mid-range versus, based on everything that we saw yesterday, I'm going to assume that this is once again a LuxSol deck and not a Demacia sort of... I mean, I know that we've seen the Targon Allegiance with single combat and Radiant Guardian, but I feel like overwhelmingly now we are seeing the Lux version rather than just the Asol version.
Yeah, I mean, at least in Korea anyways. You know, yesterday we saw the mirror match in the very beginning here. Is that... Okay, so we actually... Did that just swap?
Okay, so I knew that they swapped after match 1. I didn't realize they swapped after the first 10 seconds of game 1.
Like, is this how we get both hands? We're just gonna keep flipping and flopping back and forth. God, that would really mess with my head if that was what was going on here. But we do see getting started here with the mid-range Frostbite and the Ice Veil Archer gonna come and get the Frostbite down here. We'll see if there's any sort of aggression on the side. Okay, wait. So hold on. Let me make sure I get this right though. So Jisoogirl is on the bottom now, right? Okay.
Yes.
See, we tried to prepare for this, and this is what happens. So we are still going to see a little bit of aggression on the side of Joonjjeolee here.
So Joonjjeolee, I was, kind of wondering, is this the LeonaLuxSol Allegiance or is this LuxSol? Turns out he split the difference and just went 2-2-2 on the LeonaLuxSol. So it's actually a combination of the two. That does mean that it will not be Targon Allegiance, I would assume, though, considering that we see the single combat and the Radiant Guardian already in hand, and we do know that there are Luxes in the deck, so Mountain Scryer probably not coming out of this one. On the side of Jisoogirl, we have an absolutely garbage hand.
Yeah. 2 Troll Chant. You know, it's funny, I just did a video myself on Troll Chant and why it's such a good card, and I was really thinking that it was just, replacement to Elixir of Iron. We're actually seeing Elixir and 2 Troll Chants here, all in the first hand for Jisoogirl, and yeah, that's not too hot right now, which kind of leads me to believe she's going to get forced into using one of these here. Yep, and it looks like she is opting to go with the Elixir of Iron. And mainly because, you have the cards, you have to use them. And we've talked about this before. The hand, yeah, sure, it's not that great, but you got to play the cards that are dealt to you. And we do see the Elixir of Iron here come out in the Ice Veil Archer.
So I've been experimenting with Troll Chant a lot recently, and I know that there's been this shared sentiment across the community that Trundle was one of the more underrated champions in the set. He feels a lot like Vi. And I've been struggling to build a deck focused around Trundle, and I kind of realized that we never really built decks around Vi either. We just kind of included her. And I think the reason that Trundle isn't seeing as much play as we thought he would is because Freljord isn't as splashable as Piltover and Zaun was. Mm-hmm. So even though him and Vi were kind of filling the same role, Vi's region just paired a little bit better with most things than Freljord ended up.
Yeah, I got to agree. Freljord doesn't exactly have Mystic Shots at its disposal or Static Shocks or any of those just awesome removal spells that are pretty much just good in any situation. You have these really situational Frostbite spells, right? But Troll Chant, overall, I feel like Troll Chant is a really good card. I mean, it can put a lot of things within range of Culling Strike as well. Any of those 5 attacks units, -2 attack, you can then Culling Strike it. I feel like that's a interaction we actually don't see too much as well with Troll Chant now being released.
One of the things that I loved about Troll Chan initially is I played a lot of Trundle Swain on release, and the ability to remove a fearsome blocker with Troll Chan so that your Swain could get through, especially a leveled Swain, had a huge impact on the game.
Yeah, there you go. Removing fearsome blockers too. So it's a really versatile card. So I do like it. It looks like she's actually drawing into a much better hand now. So Jisoogirl definitely catching up here in tempo, really starting to put the pressure onto Joonjjeolee here. And we'll see if she's able to keep it up and swing for what looks to be a pretty big turn here.
This does likely mean that the Radiant Guardian will come down in response, but Joonjjeolee actually really valuing getting down this Radiant Guardian, electing not to play the Comet onto the Ashe. And Jisoogirl is actually just going to pass the turn with the board that she has available. And we're really hoping for a Trifarian Assessor here.
Yeah, I mean, but do you just kind of wait? Is that what you do, though? Do you just wait that out and try to draw it without attacking and not putting pressure on? I feel like going up against ASOL, you kind of have to pressure them so they can't just set up their turn 10 like they want.
I was a little surprised not to see the attack come out, but I think she understood that a Radiant Guardian is the play that Joonjjeolee was going to go for, and as aggressive as you do want to get, if your opponent gets down this 5 attack lifesteal unit that you don't have a clean answer for, it's not going to do you a whole lot of good. Of course, does pick up the Reckoning off the top. Theoretically, would have had an answer with Troll Chant Reckoning, which is another implication of the card that we don't see that often.
Yeah, and it's one of the what are your thoughts then? I mean, we've spit out so many different, Troll Chant can be used in this situation, X, Y, Z. Obviously, it has a lot of different uses. What are your thoughts on running Elixir of Iron and Troll Chant? I feel like that's kind of overkill to run both.
I definitely think it's one of the more dead cards in the deck. There are matchups where it's good, but there are a lot of matchups where it's not so good. You really do just want to find your units, and you kind of run into that problem that a lot of Bannerman decks do, where you're just constantly drawing spells when you need to be drawing gas. And having this many in the deck, obviously it looks really bad here because you front-loaded on so many of them. You drew all of them in your opening hand. I'm hard-pressed to imagine more than 1 or 2 copies of the Elixir of Iron. I would say 2 Troll Chant, 1 Elixir is probably the most that I would want to go, and that is what we saw in Jisoogirl's opening hand. So hopefully those are all of the copies in the deck, but I don't mind a little bit of a mix, although I usually like to see players commit one way or the other. There are situations where one is better than the other, but you have to decide which situation am I seeing more often and just hard commit to that.
Yeah, now we see what looks to be a pretty damn good Reckoning come out on the side of Jisoogirl. We'll see if this Lux possibly gets saved with a Pale Cascade, possibly. There are some other options available. We have single combat to potentially remove things as well. But okay, just going to go ahead and let this Reckoning go off. That is, that's definitely a good field clear there. But now enabling the 3 mana Remembrance. So it looks like Joonjjeolee is actually valuing getting that cheaper Remembrance off above everything else there.
Okay, so we're not going to use the Troll Chant to sort of, stalwart the attack, kill it with the Ashe, get a little bit of damage pushed on the Ashe. Instead, we're just going to kill it on the following turn with the Ashe Glory Seeker combo, and that is going to push 11 damage into the face of Joonjjeolee. We'll have the Radiant Guardian and a couple single combats to go ahead and start to restabilize on that, as well as the Star Shaping. And overall, I mean, Jisoogirl is doing fine with the aggression, but we need to find a Trifarian Assessor soon because we are just relying on our top decks really hard at this point in order to continue to stabilize the board.
Yeah, I do like letting through that Cavalry attack initially, though, and then setting up this Glory Seeker like you mentioned. I mean, sure, one of the things we've always discussed with mid-range Frostbite is you can't really let that much damage come through because it does stick. There's no way to heal, so against aggressive decks, that's sometimes a weakness. But in this case, you're not really too worried about the ASOL deck being hyper aggressive early on. You either lose late game or you don't. So taking, some of that damage early on, going down to 13, I don't think is a big deal. So I do like that trade. We do see the Radiant Guardian come out on the side of Joonjjeolee. So speaking of not having any life gain on the side of Jisoogirl, we do have these Radiant Guardians as such a good card over on Joonjjeolee's side of the field.
Looks like he's contemplating that single combat to go ahead and take out the Hearthguard, get that immediate 5 life, have an attack with it next turn. But then, you open yourself up to the possibility of a Brittle Steel out of Jisoogirl to go ahead and kill that in combat, though. He does have the Comet to deal with the Ashe, so it looks like he is just going to go for it, going to take out that Hearthguard. This puts him in a pretty okay spot, and it looks like we are going to finally see one of these Troll Chants used to go ahead and protect that.
Yeah, this is definitely a pretty good use of Troll Chant. Unfortunately, because of that tough keyword, you know, not going to be able to actually remove the Radiant Guardian. It's one of the reasons why these, you know, concerted strikes and single combats are so good with something like Radiant Guardian, or even the Cavalry for that matter that we just saw die on previous turns, is that you can utilize them in such good ways to deal that 5 damage versus a lot of other 5 drops that just won't trade evenly because of the tough tag.
Oh, there we go. That's an assessor
Oh,
if I've ever seen one.
wow.
Is Joonjjeolee going to open up the turn with the Comet onto the Ash, or are we going to see 5 draws come
So
out of Jisoogirl?
it's so Jisoogirl, I just she takes her mouse and then she like counts the 4 on the field, and then she like hovers it really fast like back and forth. That literally in my head, I feel like that's her being like, I just give me the turn. I want to draw. Like I just want to play this assessor and get all these juicy cards into my hand.
It looks like Joonjjeolee is going to open with the Comet. We had talked a lot about how recently players have been proactively playing around this Trifarian Assessor, and, you know, finally gets the Comet down, kind of the perfect time. We are still going to get 4 draws coming out of this Assessor, so by no means an unimpactful card.
Yeah, I don't think you're really too worried about that. Like, okay, great. You know, you lose your Ash. That's not exactly the greatest thing in the world. But the Assessor's also buffed to draw with itself, so you're getting the full 4. You even see, wow, that is, oh my god. And what I was going to say is, more importantly, after that Comet, you know, your opponent doesn't really have a lot of mana. So yeah, just forced to kind of play a unit down to not be open to a really bad open attack on the side of Jisoogirl.
And we could even see a 5-draw Assessor on the following turn. This has to go the way of Jisoogirl at this point, right? What can Joonjjeolee possibly draw to get out of this situation?
I am really hard pressed to. I don't know, man. I mean, he's got the star shaping, right? So the star shaping might keep him in this. Maybe gets him something that he can use on the following turn, like a supernova to obliterate too. But even a supernova, like, this is one of the reasons why I feel like celestial cards really aren't that great. Like, sure, they're powerful, especially when you have Aurelion Sol in the field, but if you play the star shaping and then you supernova next turn, that's 9 mana. You're only dealing with 2 units, and in all reality, you might actually still die if you go for that play, just because Jisoogirl is just still going to have a ton of units on the field. Not to mention, she can summon more.
Do we know what that Ash is sitting at? I want to say it's 2 out of 5, maybe 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
Because if it's 3 out of 5, I'm pretty sure she just guaranteed has lethal this turn going with that Brittle Steel.
Yeah, I want to say, yeah, it's either 2 or 3. I'm always up in the air as to whether or not like the second arrow would be highlighted if it's 3. You know, we need confirmation on that. But yeah, I'm not 100% positive there. We do see the star shaping come out here. And we are back, folks. Sorry about that short little technical difficulty there, but looks like we are right back into the action with this single combat. Again, going to have the Troll Chant come out to negate one of these single combats.
Yeah, so it was a star shaping onto the Radiant Guardian to take it out of Brittle Steel range, and that gets followed up by a Troll Chant into the Culling Strike, which will actually get negated by the Pale Cascade, but that will still let the Ash survive the turn.
Yeah, so the Troll Chants, I mean, they've been kind of sitting in hand for quite some time, and, you know, like we said, not exactly the best hand getting started there, but now later in the game, it's just interesting to see how impactful these 2-cost burst speed spells are. And it's one of the things I do like about Legend of Runeterra in particular is it seems like a lot of the lower cost spells actually are very impactful even super late into the game. And a lot of card games, most of the time, the lower cost cards tend to not have an impact late in the game.
Oh, Jisoogirl just has lethal here if she plays the Avarosan Sentry, right?
Oh wait, yeah, actually, there's no mana on the side of Joonjjeolee.
Yeah, this is just lethal. If you go ahead and play that card, you are currently only representing 16 damage.
Oh, why? And
no.
She could have pulled the Radiant Guardian too.
Yeah, and she is. Oh, that's just.
Stinks.
There's no reason. That is just a straight up missed lethal on the side of Jisoogirl, and I still don't know that there's anything Joonjjeolee's going to be able to do to get out of this.
I think she just realized it too. She did hover the Aversion Sentry afterwards. Yeah, yep. And she keeps hovering it over and over again. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say she caught it afterwards. But what's unfortunate is that does allow, and I don't know if he can find a way back into this, but it does allow Joonjjeolee to now get to turn 10 and possibly, well, there's no ASOL in his hand, so actually that's not going to matter. So it's really just about whether or not he can stick around for another couple of turns here. I don't think he can.
I don't know. Being able to find the two challengers, though, and then still having the Radiant Guardian on backup's about as good a chance as you're going to get. But yeah, that is not going to be enough. Oh, what is this thing's name? The Serpent. There we go. I was going to say the Snake, and I'm like, no, it's got to be something more elegant than that. It can't just be the Snake.
Well, okay. Maybe, all right, here we go. I'm going to give some credit to Jisoogirl because we saw yesterday in one of the games where I forget who it was, but they clearly, DK had the game won. And he decides to go and play like every card in his hand just for the sake of playing every card in his hand. So maybe, just maybe, Jisoogirl just wanted to get that second assessor off and draw like 8 more cards. I mean, you can't fault him.
I thought we were talking about throws because that's what DK did. I know that there was someone who fired off every card in their hand. It was not him. He lost.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember who it was that did that, but just absolutely not needed. So we'll see if Jisoogirl is still able to take it away here.
So the Ash is going to fall, but I still, with that 10 remaining mana, you can get down the Radiant Guardian and the Warrior, but I don't think that's going to be enough.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And I think there's still a challenger in Glory Seeker on Jisoogirl's side of the field, so even if Radiant Guardian is somehow played with lifesteal, it's going to be pulled last. And okay, well, that's definitely a game, at least next turn. So I think
one would hope.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a way to screw that one up. But we'll see here. It does come down with lifesteal and tough, so it will need to be pulled last on the attack here. And all those cards, it feels so bad, they're fleeting. It looks like it's such a closer game than it really is, but literally once this turn ends, half that hand is just gonna go bye-bye.
Oh, more than half. I think that's 6 out of 8 cards in hand are going to get discarded.
Oh, wow. The Warrior is even fleeting. It didn't even look fleeting. Wow. Yeah. So that's basically the entire hand. I mean, he has 5 mana and he can reduce the cost of one of them by 1, but that actually doesn't really make a difference. So you can really only use the Silence here. And what's the 2 cost name again?
That is Moonglow.
Moonglow. Okay. So really just the Moonglow and the Silence here is I mean, I don't see why you don't. You could... Okay. What... Okay, I don't... So, because of the Challenger, Okay, he's going to still play the Silence on the Glory Seeker. Okay, that's exactly what I was just thinking. Awesome. So this is great because now the Glory Seeker can't actually pull the Lifesteal unit last. So this might, maybe, possibly be a way back in the game.
I was going to say, you could even pull that Radiant Guardian first just to BM. You still have 15 damage coming at your opponent. But we do have the Sejuani in hand as well if we want to go ahead and Frostbite that out to take care of it. And, I mean, you're not really worried about the Sky's Descent because your opponent's only at 10 mana. They would need 13 since they only have 1 Celestial. Star Shaping, not going to be enough. I'm trying to think of what you could even find, but because it finds you... Star Shaping always finds a 7 or higher cost Celestial.
Yes, yep. So
you won't even be able to play it this turn. You're really down to... The only 2 cards you could play out here is Grizzled Ranger Star Shaping, and that is 100% not going to be enough. And you even see him lean back in his chair when the Captain Farron comes down, understanding that is not something he's going to be able to deal with. And yeah, Jisoogirl should be picking this one up here relatively soon.
I love the glasses, by the way, on the side of Joonjjeolee. Those are... I can literally see his hand in his glass. See, that's all we need for dual hands now. We just need people to wear glasses that are so reflective that we can see their hands on their stream. It'll be fine.
This Lobster's the only one I can think of that wears glasses, but he always sits at an angle where we can't really see the screen.
I think this might be game.
Yeah, this is I'm no math wizard, but this is looking like actually just going to attack with the Captain Farron. Does this let Joonjjeolee live?
Is Jisoogirl trolling or is she intentionally trying to give her opponent outs? I don't know what's going on.
I don't actually know how Overwhelm works with the lifesteal. I think this still kills him, right?
No.
No? Okay.
Okay, now... Okay, so I think... All right, listen.
How many...
All right,
we don't see anything super impactful in the hand of Joonjjeolee. He's hovering them so I can't see everything, but the fact that these all cost mana lead me to believe that this is not going to be enough.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way he gets back in this, and I don't know. Well, now we know how Overwhelm and Lifesteal work, so at least we figured that out in this game. It's really unfortunate, but we still have the Decimate in hand, so...
Why didn't we decimate it? Hold on, no.
I mean, I feel like you just do Decimate now, right? There's no reason not to.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, there is a judgment in the hand of Joonjjeolee, so now there actually is an avenue for him to try and come back and win this game. Why just play the Decimate?
Okay, yeah, what?
I'm counting each of those passes as a missed lethal, so we're up to 4 missed lethals.
So bad, like I don't understand.
There's no, like, if your opponent has healing, you can't play around that. Just play the Decimate.
I just feel like we have seen like 5 turns now where there's like no reason this game actually should have continued, but it has now because of just so many different mislethals. Like I don't think in any sort of tournament that we've casted that we've actually seen that many mislethals in a row in the same game, no less.
At least not that obviously. Yeah, and we're just going to see a pass out of... Like, you went a whole turn without killing your opponent like you could have. And now, if you start... Why are we going to start the turn with Decimate if we didn't play it last game? What's going on here? Make it make sense.
He must like... I am really actually wondering what Joonjjeolee is thinking. Like he's like, wait a second, my opponent has game. Like he literally can
in my
see
opponent's
the
hand.
Like, what is this? Oh,
I understand. On the side of Joonjjeolee, he was hoping that his opponent's hand was so big that they would just forget they had Decimate, and it worked for 2 priority sequences. And then it comes down, and that is going to be Jisoogirl picking up game number 1.
I think if this was on ladder, at least I know me personally, like he has this little smirk on his face too, so he's gonna be like, "What's going on?" I don't know if I can actually say that with a straight face.
So, did I get the format wrong? Because we saw, or did they swap back on? I'm a little confused here because, as far as I know, you're not allowed to repeat the same regional composition. So you're not allowed to have 2 Demacia Targon decks, but it looks like this is just LuxSol, where last game we saw LeonaLuxSol.
Yes. Yeah, well, one's LuxSol, the other is TrundleASol, right?
Yeah, but the TrundleASol is on the same side of the board as the Frostbite midrange was, leading me to believe that this is Jisoogirl's teammate, unless they swap back. We'll have to find out in a second here when they actually get us.
Oh, as far as like top and bottom.
The graphics up, yeah.
Yeah. So, well,
of course,
it should be
the one time I need them to actually figure it out. Here we go.
It should be.
Okay, so they.
Seungwoo Daddy's on the bottom, right?
No, Seungwoo Daddy's on top. No, you're right. Yeah, Seungwoo Daddy's on the bottom.
Non is on top.
I forgot that. Yeah. Okay, so Non is Jisoogirl's teammate. Okay, so that is the Frostbite midrange player's teammate, so they do have their own Lux Targon deck. I got it all figured out now. It just took them a little bit longer than I wanted them to pull up the graphics so I could get my bearings straight. So, yeah, you are not allowed to play the same regional composition twice. I got all that right.
Cool. So we still are on point with the actual format here. I do apologize. Looks like they are working on getting the hand and the picture up of the opponent here, so I'm sure that'll get fixed here momentarily. But we do see the Solari come down. Going to go ahead and block this loose moose coming out very early here. A 5/5 on turn 3. This just goes to show you the power of spells that can summon units early like this.
See, I was going to say this shows the power of Solari Shield Bearer, because I can't think of another situation where I can actually force my opponent off of a turn 3 Wording Stone.
Yeah, no, I got to agree. I got to agree 100%. The 6 health is absolutely insane. I remember when I first saw that card too, I did think it was a little strong, but you know, once it goes down back to a 3/2, it does feel like it's pretty balanced. But that one turn, man, of just being able to basically block anything that comes through, super, super good.
So let's talk about this Caught in the Cold that is in Daddy's hand.
That is a main decked Caught in the Cold. Okay, I have never liked this card. I just think it's so bad. I feel like you could play Hired Gun, and Hired Gun's probably a better card than that.
Hired Gun is definitely a better card than that. The problem is that that's in
It's in
Bilgewater,
Yeah.
so I mean, I definitely don't like it. I am curious to see how effectively Daddy's able to utilize it.
I can't take you seriously saying daddy. He did
I love that.
He did this with his name specifically to troll casters. What I will say about Caught in the Cold is Vulnerable seems to work very, very nicely with units that have regeneration, which is a nice little side effect. You know, you can kind of pick off a particular unit that you know your regen unit will survive through the attack and be able to regen up. So at that point, it basically becomes a 2-cost, in the case of Trundle, deal 4 damage to a unit. So it feels okay, but I don't know. It's still not the greatest. Although, when you think about that, what I just said with the Vulnerable too, it Frostbites the unit. So in all reality, you're actually not even needing to utilize regeneration with Vulnerable like you'd normally want to. So I don't know. I just feel like there's so many better cards you could put instead of Caught in the Cold.
Name 17.
Exactly. Not 16? I only got 16.
Name 17 better cards than Caught in the Cold that you could play in this deck that aren't already in
all
here.
right, let's see. Oh.
You have 10 seconds.
Jesus. I can't even speak that fast.
You're down to 5 seconds.
Elixir of Iron times 17.
Oh, no, Caught in the Cold's in there. It's staying. Couldn't name 17 better cards in 10 seconds? What is this, amateur hour?
Oh, man. That is a good point, though. Freljord, and we just said Freljord's not as splashable, right? Freljord does have a lot less options, I think, when it comes to spells if you're not going the Frostbite route, right? Frostbite obviously has plenty of options, but as far as removal, just straight up removal is concerned, Caught in the Cold is probably about what you got. So...
Yeah, and there are some backline units that we've seen, capable of taking over games recently. There's Misfortune, Jinx. They're mostly aggressive ones. So, and we talk a lot about how Freljord Targon has almost no removal available to it outside of Avalanche. So I actually do really like Caught in the Cold in theory for being able to take out things like Jinx and Misfortune, and even I'm sure there are others that I'm just not really thinking of off the top of my head because those are the two main ones. Or Mountain Scryer, even just being able to pick off these higher health units that you can't get off the board with just an Avalanche.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to see, especially in this deck, I mean, seeing now that we have a Caught in the Cold here, I'd be really interested to see if there are Avalanche or Icequakes in here as far as, AoE damage is concerned. So we'll see if he ends up drawing one here. Wow! Okay, that's one we haven't seen either. I know. Please tell me you're going to a website to look up the name of that. Is that Fused Firebrand? No.
No, that is not Fused Firebrand, you silly goose. That is White Flame Protector.
I knew that. White Flame Protector, the card that absolutely nobody has played as of yet. So that's another interesting choice here. Wow. Okay, so what are your thoughts on this card? Why is this in the deck? We went through Caught in the Cold. Why is this in the deck?
So we had seen one of the LuxSol decks yesterday running Herald of Dragons, and I'm hard-pressed to imagine that it's not in the list of Daddy at this point, just because I would think that Babbling Bjerg is my premier 4-drop, and I understand that it can be really weird to put 4-cost units in your ramp deck because so many of your ramp spells, both Wording Stone and Catalyst of Aeons, both come out on turn 3, so you're generally trying to skip turn 4, but for the games that you don't get that, it does feel like you need something in that 4-drop slot or you're in a really awkward situation. I'm not convinced that White Flame Protector is the best card for that. I would think that Bjerg being able to search up my Aurelion Soul is a little bit better, especially given that I'm only, a 1/1 stat line higher, but I mean, paired with this Caught in the Cold, maybe we are going for a much more board-centric style of deck and being able to Frostbite something, take it out with this White Flame, buff it up a little bit. I'm curious to see if we actually are a little more all-in on the Dragon package. Maybe we're playing things like Clutch of the Dragon and Herald.
Yeah, and, I gotta say, thus far, going into day 2 here, we did see a fair representation of dragons in day 1. I don't hate it. I don't, I like that we are seeing something like dragons, which is a pretty underrepresented archetype, at least from previous tournaments that we've casted in NA or EU or really anywhere for that matter. It's always good to see an archetype like that start to see a little bit of play. Although I still am not sold on it being the best thing. But you know what? I said that about Deep for a long time, so we'll see. We'll see if dragons suddenly become like the go-to for ramp decks.
It's so weird because I don't even know if there is like an ASOL dragon deck, and it's a Demacia board control deck, and I don't know how many dragon decks we're going to come out with. I'm really curious to see what Shyvana does.
Shyvana? Who's that? I've never heard of Shyvana. Is that a dragon by any chance?
Oh, it's a dragon lady shit. It's a dragon lady.
Yeah, very excited. Love playing her in jungle. Would love to see her in this game as well. But we do see the Ice Pillar come out here. Going to go ahead and give vulnerable to the Moose. And we'll see what the next play is now on the side of Nangu.
So I had mentioned before I cut out, I don't know how much of it was heard, but I'm just going to repeat the entire thought. So the Ice Pillar in conjunction with the White Flame Protector and the dragons in general, I can kind of see. I just don't know if White Flame Protector is going to be able to kill the strongest unit on my opponent's side of the field from turn 8 onward. And I'm hard pressed to imagine that there's not fused Firebrands in this deck if that is the case, or at least Infinite Mind Splitter. I'm sure that there is a Clutch of the Dragon in here. This White Flame Protector is really throwing me for a loop because it is far and away, I believe, unilaterally considered to be the worst of the dragons.
I got to agree. I mean, there's Fused Firebrand has Spell Shield, right?
Yep.
And then the one that we are seeing everybody play has Challenger and Fury. And Challenger, obviously, we know, Challenger is just an overall good card attribute. So yeah, this one seems kind of odd. It's also, this is the only 4-drop though. I think the rest of them cost 5, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's kind of the decision there. Is he's looking for a little bit of a lower curve option to stick to the field, maybe to deal with stuff like I don't know, Demacia decks, Bannerman, stuff like that.
Probably. I'm just not sure that it's gonna be enough, but I mean, I don't know. It's a deck building decision. This is sort of the matchup where maybe you are going for it. I think Scouts is a little more, the Demacia deck that you're looking to get value out of this card in. But this is still a Demacia deck. We'll see how it goes. No Lux coming down yet on the side of non-GGU, so things going pretty well for Daddy so far. Is going to have that ASOL available in a couple of turns. Maybe this is the turn where we finally see that caught in the cold value. Or not, as we could just see an Infinite Mind Splitter come down instead and completely stalwart the board.
I'm not going to lie. I just want to see the Caught in the Cold played. Like, I think if this Caught in the Cold is played here, I think it'll actually be the first time we've seen it played in a tournament atmosphere. At least for me, anyways.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I can't think of another time that I've seen this card come down. Because, I mean, there's not a lot of times that a region that is going to randomly generate spells is paired with Freljord.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, 100%. And it looks like Daddy's thinking about the Mind Splitter. I imagine it would go on the Moose as well as the Shield Bearer. Yep, looks like that is going to be the case. And it's always, something weird, kind of a weird interaction with Infinite Mind Splitter. When you are playing it on your opponent's attack turn, that's not the case here, but a lot of times your opponent can just send those units that you are going to stun on the following turn in for an attack. So for that reason, Infinite Mind Splitter is kind of a card that you have to play on your attack turn. But same deal, if you play it on your attack turn, then your opponent can just block if you do go in for an attack with those units that you just selected with Infinite Mind Splitter. So kind of an awkward card as far as that's concerned. But overall, I do think it's a great card. I mean, an 8/8 body is just one heck of a follower to have to deal with.
Yeah, you and I have talked a lot in the past about how there are not a lot of followers in Legends of Runeterra that actually have a high amount of attack as well as health, and Infinite Mind Splitter in a very elite group in that regard. So yeah, while his effect does feel a little bit awkward in terms of tempo and when you can and can't attack effectively, just having the 8/8 body with the Fury is going to feel really good. And just an Infinite Mind Splitter going to be the return play out of non-goo, and I do think this is where we see Caught in the Cold come down, just to run my Mind Splitter into your Mind Splitter.
Yeah, and that might actually do the trick here. Is I don't really know. This is that point in the game. We talked about this yesterday when we had some Aurelian Soul Mirror matches. This is like thought overload because there's so many different options on the field, and actually there was worse scenarios yesterday where right now we basically see like a full field versus a full field with a decent sized hand. We saw 10 card hands on the side of both players as well. but equally as hard to kind of figure out, okay, what's actually the best play to make here. Looks like in this case, he's actually going to re-vulnerable. Okay, I was going to say that'd be a little bit weird, but I definitely see why it's difficult to make certain decisions on the side of Daddy. It just kind of stinks that his Infinite Mind Splitter is stunned and his opponent's is not right now.
I think I would have liked to see the Caught in the Cold come out there. I wouldn't have even minded maybe sending the Tavern Keeper at the Moose just to free up board space on my own so that I didn't have to overwrite anything to play the Aurelion Soul.
I think he's probably thinking, okay, this turn he can play the Comet and just obliterate the Mind Splitter, and then he gets to keep his, but I don't know if I'm in love with that play, because I feel like you want to keep the Comet for something like your opponent's Aurelion Soul.
I also just think I want to get my ASOL down. We saw yesterday in pretty much every ASOL mirror in the past that whoever levels ASOL first is going to be in a truly dominant position. Oh, please play the ASOL over. I wanted to see the ASOL played over the Wording Stone since you are going into turn 10 organically at this point. Yeah, what was the point of just passing back if we're just going to ASOL this turn now that our opponent has ASOL mana as well?
Yeah, that was kind of... I don't think there's any reason to not play it last turn. Oh, what I will say, though, with the Caught in the Cold previously, now the other Mind Splitter has Vulnerable on it thanks to the Ice Pillar, because it does switch the Vulnerable to the strongest unit. So at least now this Aurelion Soul, if it's not dealt with on the side of non, would potentially be able to trade quite nicely with this Infinite Mind Splitter.
I'm worried about Pale Cascade personally. You do have the Hush in hand on backup, but I don't think negating a Pale Cascade is where you want to be committing that card.
Okay, so now I do agree with the Pale Cascade, but I do also love this play from Non. We saw very specifically yesterday, that's another player, I forget who it was, they made the mistake of they saw their opponent play an Aurelion Soul, and they did not return the favor. They instead opted to go for a little bit of a more obscure line, kind of sort of trying to remove the Aurelion Soul, but I think Non here realizing, okay, I need to match the leveled up Aurelion Soul, or this is not going to be pretty.
I to see the Caught in the Cold come out now, I'm critical of the fact that we didn't play this on the turn that the Mind Splitters came down to try and kill that. I still don't fully understand why we didn't play the Aurelion Soul last turn on the side of Daddy to get that down before our opponent had the opportunity, because now you're really throwing the game to a coin toss of, okay, now we both have a leveled Aurelion Soul, who's getting off the better Celestials, and with my opponent having the first priority sequence, that is something that I'm going to be worried about.
So... yeah, I was going to say, I mean, is there any way that, if you just attack with everything on the side of Daddy and you pull the Infinite Mind Splitter, do you force your opponent to block down and not level up their Aurelion Soul? But that's not going to be the case here. Even killing this 8 attack Mind Splitter, his opponent still has 21 attack on the board, and there's no way with the cards he currently has in hand to prevent the ASOL from leveling. If he still had Hush mana, that might have been a decent play. You can prevent it from leveling and then deal with the board next turn and try to...
You can't. You would only pop the Spell Shield.
Yeah, you would need 6 total mana for that. So it's just, I don't know. This seems like kind of an awkward play. You do get the bigger Aurelion Soul, I guess. Like, now it's going to be an 11-11. So maybe that's going to be the difference maker here, because your ASOL can eat
I doubt it.
one. I doubt it, too. Oh, ooh, okay. So the Hush... okay, well, that, I hope he wasn't thinking... So I wonder if that
I think he was just trying to get rid of the Spell Shield, because this is... I mean, both Aurelion Souls are still going to level, but getting that... I mean, I can't think of a whole lot of reasons to play the Hush on this turn as opposed to next turn, where I can potentially get more use out of it by doubling up on it if I need to. But
yeah, it's kind of like the whole idea of there's really no reason to use your spell mana if you can just use it on the next turn. But opting to use it there, and I guess now kind of having the advantage, right? I mean, you kind of want to be the person with the spell shield still on the Aurelion Soul, because now on the side of Daddy, he's open to exactly this, something like a Supernova, the perfect card. We do see a Living Legends in hand, but it doesn't look like Daddy's going to have enough time to get this off.
No, I would assume we're going to play the Written in Stars to go ahead and draw out one of our champions.
Hmm.
We might see Hush Comet onto the opposing Aurelion Soul, although if Non-Gu can follow that up with a second copy of Aurelion Soul, I think that is more or less just going to be the game going over to him. Looks like we're contemplating the Living Legends. We wouldn't get a whole lot of value out of it, though, and because the Aurelion Soul is dying, I mean, we could play our second Aurelion Soul and then play out every card in our hand, but I don't see a reason not to just play the Living Legends after the next Aurelion Soul comes down then.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like he saved the Living Legends. Oh, he did it.
Okay, so, well, I understand it now because you fired off Hush, so you're using the Living Legends to get back the mana to play the Aurelion Soul.
Okay. Okay, but that's it. I was just going to say, if he is going to go for the Comet, though, I feel like let's say he wasn't going to go for the Comet and just wanted to play his own Aurelion Soul. That still doesn't actually deal with his opponent's Aurelion Soul, so I feel like that's not really the best line to take.
Well, playing your A Soul makes your Comet cost 0 again.
Oh, that's a really good point.
I feel like people constantly forget that if you just slam down a second A Soul,
Yeah.
your Celestials cost 0 again. I think what Daddy was worried about was playing his A Soul and getting it immediately removed again, and then not being able to play any of his Celestials. But
Yeah.
you sort of taken yourself off the Celestials for the turn anyway by, not playing the Aurelion Soul. You have 20 mana worth of fleeting Celestials and 7 mana.
Well, and I gotta. I feel like you kind of have to prioritize removing your opponent's Aurelion Soul, because if you did get down yours to reduce the Comet's cost to 0, that then passes priority back over to Non, who can then, like you said, play something to obliterate your Aurelion Soul, get some sort of value with a 0 mana card, which would then possibly put you out of range of playing something like the obliterate at that point, like the Comet. So I think you kind of have to do this, but we're just going to see a very similar thing on the side of Non here, getting the Living Legends off, and we'll see if we can get any of these fleeting Celestials down. I imagine he'll just drop the Destroyer here.
So the other thing is that when Daddy played Living Legends, he had 8 mana. So he could have hushed again to prevent Non-Gu's Aurelion Soul from having the continuous effect of reducing all Celestials to 0. And I don't think he thought about, necessarily using every bit of mana available to him before he fired off the Living Legends, because it was all going on the stack. But I think that could have been a throw, because if you do hush your opponent's Aurelion Soul, get it off the table as something that reduces Celestials to 0, then you're much safer to respond with your own Aurelion Soul. Your opponent would need something like Single Combat to pop the Spell Shield into a Concerted Strike immediately to get your Aurelion Soul off the table.
And what that does is it not only allows you to utilize another copy of Hush, but also get all these other fleeting Celestial cards down, which at this point is kind of just looking like he's just going to waste most of them. Feels bad.
For a second there, I really thought he was going to play the Sunburst onto Deluxe without the Daybreak ability.
That would not have been very hot. We do see the Destroyer come down. And I gotta figure, if Non does not have another Aurelion Soul, it's probably just game, because Daddy will be able to get his down. Like, I think Non actually needs to just draw it, or if he doesn't already have it, next turn.
Definitely looking a little bit awkward for Non-Gu, although we don't have their hand. If he does have an Aurelion Soul, then he's in an okay spot. Could be okay without it, depending on the Celestials in hand as well, or if he just has a Concerted Strike, because I do think he has a pretty good shot at actually killing an Aurelion Soul that comes down on the side of Seungwoo Daddy.
Well, something else to note, too, and we saw this from some of the other Lux A-Soul decks. On the side of Non, there's only 2 A-Souls in his deck, and I feel like that's just an inherent disadvantage in the mirror match. Like, you just have less, bazookas, so to speak, than your opponent does to just go off in the game, and I mean, that might hurt him here when we see right now the second Aurelion Soul coming down on the side of Daddy.
Ooh, and gonna get another Living Legends, contemplating the Supernova.
Just do the Living
Legends. I do like the Living Legends, though.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say anything that can refill 13 mana is probably an okay card.
Because in order for Non-Gu to actually remove the Aurelion Soul immediately, he would need something like Single Combat, Double Concerted Strike. Because even if you have to pop the Spell Shield and then give me a priority sequence, I'm still getting down a 10 mana Celestial for no mana. And then I can even follow up with the Infinite Mind Splitter.
Yeah, and I think one of the things Daddy was probably thinking about there as well was instead of the Living Legends, just getting one of those Obliterate spells in case his opponent has his own ASOL. But we see there with the Remembrance, obviously that is not the case. He will level up the Lux, but I don't think that's going to help.
So I actually would like to see Daddy play the Written in Stars first and see if we get a Descend to the Skies. Nope, gonna get a Trundle instead. That's fine. I just wanted to see if we had the option to actually Living Legends back into the 13 mana to play an Aurelion Soul spell and just end the game this turn.
You might be able to end it anyways with that stun too.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Especially, I think that 2 copies of the Destroyer or the Great Beyond rather.
That's the Great Beyond. I mean, that is so Crescent Strike.
That's elusive.
That's Crescent Strike plus elusive plus Overwhelm with the Destroyer on the field. That's I think just game. I don't know if anything with 7 mana can actually prevent that on the side of none.
I'm going over it in my head, and I'm inclined to agree, especially since there isn't, or rather, there's no. You can't kill this Aurelion Soul with Concerted Strike because it is an 11/11 and you only have 5 attack units. You can only deal 10 damage to it. You know, you can use this Final Spark to pop the Spell Shield, but unless you kill this Aurelion Soul, I'm pretty sure you're just going to die to these Great Beyonds, especially... Why does this card have Spell Shield?
Wait, you say why does Great Beyond have Spell Shield?
Yeah, make it make sense for me. This card is so good.
I mean, I think that's kind of the point, right? Like it's 10 cost usually. So like, okay, if it's a 10 cost Celestial, how do we make it as busted
It's the
as
9
possible?
cost.
Oh, that's the 9 cost one. What's the 10
Yeah, the
cost?
Scourge is the
that's
10
right,
cost.
the
It's the
Scourge.
10/10 Challenger that gives everything else +2/+2 and Overwhelm.
See, and that's broken too. So I mean, that's kind of the point, right? Like, it's a Celestial card. They're supposed to be over the top, and the idea is that you're probably never really going to get them down for the most part, unless you're going to end the game anyways, which is exactly what we look like we're going to see here in just a second. Looks like
it just feels so bad. I mean, how am I going to play around 2 15 attack elusives coming down for 0 mana?
I mean, you could. Nope. Yeah, no, it's not a thing. I don't think it's possible. I think the only way you play around it, quote unquote, is by killing your opponent first. That's actually it.
That's so hard.
Wow.
So yeah, Daddy actually is going to be able to tie up the series 1-1. Or no? Okay.
There we go.
I'd be worried there for a second.
We're back. Yeah. And so, is this like a thing in Korea where you just like play out your entire hand even if you already have game on like represented?
You know, I've been wondering if there was a possibility that surrendering was banned from the event.
Oh man. So we see the full on attack. I want to say, I think if my math skills are good, that's going to be game. And Daddy, taking it home there.
So this is going to be Icarus versus Chenia. And Chenia, as far as I know, is the only returning player from the winning lineup of the first King of Runeterra tournament.
Awesome. Okay, cool.
And this is the first Twisted Fate Swain that we've seen all tournament, which is really interesting because this is far and away the most popular tournament deck in the West. And so far, every time we've seen the Noxus Bilgewater combination, it's been Pirate Aggro so far in this tournament.
Yeah, and you know it's interesting too because we're getting a lot of like statistics and feedback from people in the NA and the Western space playing Legends of Runeterra that Swain and TF were basically like the most played cards. Period. So it's very interesting that this is the first time that we've seen it, and I'm curious to see how well it does. I mean, this Lux Aurelion Soul seems to be super popular in Korea because we keep seeing various iterations of it, even with the 2/2/2 with the Leona in there as well. So I'm actually quite curious to see how this Swain TF deck stands up against this Aurelion Soul.
I am pretty curious how the Lux stuff is going to work out, or the Leona stuff is going to work out, rather, because I don't think we've seen Ravoon out of the other Lux ASOL decks, and we are, I would assume, going to see it out of a Leona variant, and I'm worried about, you know, the fact that you don't have that ramp available to you, and we already seem pretty loaded on 4 and 5 drops, and I would assume that's going to continue on into the, you know, just the deck overall. Just a lot of 5 drops, a lot of 4 drops. We're not seeing any of our early Daybreak units, and that's not going to feel great, even though we do get a turn 3 Remembrance.
Yeah, we see the Cavalry come out on that turn 3 Remembrance. You know, it's just, Man, it just feels so good getting it on turn 3. A 5-drop unit on turn 3. It's just never a bad thing. You can almost always get a pretty good positive trade. You know, we see here if he does go ahead and swing in, going to be able to trade. Well, with the Petty Officer, it would only take 2 damage. That's assuming that the block is going to be with the Petty Officer. We could just throw the Spiderling under it as a chump block. So we'll see if this attack is going to happen here in just a second.
And it looks like the answer is going to be no.
Wow, okay. So why not go in for the attack there?
I think that you don't want to proactively lose your unit to a Ravenous block and have your opponent be able to just go in all aggression next turn. You want to be able to block that Petty Officer for sure and get that one off the board. Although I don't think it's out of the question for Icarus to go for, you know, a Twisted Fate into a gold card and just try and attack for as much damage as humanly possible. I'm trying to math it out here. I think it's close to 9 damage.
Yeah, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, 7 damage represented right now on the field. Looks like we are going to get the block coming through with the cavalry. And it looks like, yeah, so that cavalry not attacking, it seems like we're caring a little bit more here on the side of Chenia. About our life total and just kind of sticking it out until later in the game. So, you know, not taking that attack originally just means it's one more attack that this cavalry will be able to block if needed. Going to take the block there, and we'll see what he decides to play next. Leona is active. Feels kind of bad this turn. The stun not really going to do much here, but we might still see her come down just to get her established, or possibly the Grizzled Ranger.
I think I like the Grizzled Ranger a little bit more, just being able to get that Leona to punish a developmental attack later on. Plus, the Grizzled Ranger just being a little bit stickier in terms of the fact that it does represent a second unit, even though it is sort of the only thing in this entire deck that's going to die to a Make It Rain or a red card.
Yeah, and we do see the Grizzled Ranger hit the board. We'll see if we have the Make It Rain come out here. Twisted Fate also a good option. I mean, I don't see anything else coming down. Death's Hand doesn't really trade well into this board. Noxian Guillotine could be an option here on the Cavalry. I don't know. I feel like you don't want to use your Guillotine on something like a Cavalry this early, though.
I think I'd like to see a Twisted Fate with a blue card come down just to kind of fix the hand a little bit.
Gotta take the Guillotine. I don't know. I mean, you have Radiant Guardians you have to worry about. You have Luxes. You have Aurelian Souls would be a great target for a Guillotine. I mean, we're not positive how many Guillotines are in Icarus's deck, but that just seems like not the greatest value Guillotine that you're going to get in this particular matchup.
I'm hard-pressed to imagine that he's running more than one copy. You know, we're not even necessarily seeing players run any copies of that card anymore. It's kind of something that's become flavor of the month. Some people run it, some people don't. Mm-hmm. Looks like we're even going to follow up with the Make It Rain to go ahead and take out this Grizzled Ranger.
Yeah, and this is going into an attack turn on the side of Chenia, too, which strikes me as a little odd. Because clearing the board isn't really going to do too much for Icarus. It's not like he can go ahead and push more damage on the attack. So what I will say is this does play around. Maybe he's just really concerned about Radiant Guardian coming down, and he just wants to avoid that lifesteal effect hitting the field at all.
I don't think that's unreasonable. I mean, if you would wait until this turn and your opponent goes in with the scout attack, you're just kind of giving them a free opportunity to play the Radiant Guardian. So I think Icarus is doing a good job of proactively playing around that, especially understanding that his opponent did have a slower hand, which sounds weird because we played on curve on turns 3 and 4, so you don't necessarily have a read that they have a Radiant Guardian, but it is sort of the one thing that's going to turn off this aggressive game plan that you have committed to here in the early game. And now we're going to get Leona onto the Petty Officer. That can get removed by a block and a flock.
A block and a flock. I know you smiled right after you said that too. So I
did.
No, I know you enjoyed that one. But so yeah, and what this also does too. I mean, we're seeing a Leona come out now on turn 5 on an attack turn, which this deck doesn't really want to do. Like this feels like a suboptimal use of Leona, and I think that's kind of what Icarus was setting up for here. You avoid the Radiant Guardian. You get Twisted Fate down. You're going to have a really wide board to be able to attack with next turn. And yeah, this looks good. A red card? I don't know. I would have liked red card, though, because you have 2 flocks in hand to be able to remove the rest of the board.
I think you're just kind of deciding that that's what your one attack units are going to end up being used for. And I do like the hand fixing a little bit more, just because we don't have anything up until that Riptide Rex turn really going on. And this salvage is going to be a pretty good activator for this Twisted Fate. As we had mentioned, Targon decks can struggle with dealing with the Twisted Fate. We do have the Demacia aspect here. But if my opponent has to use a Concerted Strike on my Twisted Fate instead of my Leviathan, I'm going to feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, see, and this is what I was concerned about though, is just passing back over to Icarus on the side of Chenia. So not even being able to chump block with those one attack units to remove anything on the field of Chenia. So we'll see. This is gonna kind of be a weird turn to navigate. He can, so Icarus actually can attack with everything if he wanted to, and nothing will die. But the single combat actually now would be an activator then for the Radiant Guardian, and I think that's only if Icarus attacks. So this is going to be a really kind of hard turn for Icarus to navigate if he does want to avoid this Radiant Guardian hitting the field still.
I think at this point you can't avoid the Radiant Guardian. You're really just kind of focusing on making sure that you are going into turn 8 with that Death Sand mana so that you have the activator for the Riptide Rex. It shouldn't be too hard of a thing to do given the hand that you have. It's going to be pretty much impossible not to make it happen. But now you are proactively playing the salvage, making your opponent, proactively use removal on this Twisted Fate. And that means that the single combat isn't going to kill one of Chenia's units. He's not going to be able to actually get down the life-stealed up Radiant Guardian.
Yeah. Yep. And this is, this is good for Icarus if he is still wanting to avoid the Radiant Guardian coming down. He just basically has to not use the Death's Hand. And as long as he does that, he'll be A-okay. I don't know, though. So going into, this is turn 6. So he actually will have the attack token on turn 8. So if he continues to not allow this Radiant Guardian to stick through next turn, he might actually be able to set up for a turn 8 lethal, depending on what happens here. And he can't, he can't remove anything. If he's going for that, he actually can't do anything here.
Yeah, he's going to get completely blown open by that judgment if that is kind of the play that he's going for. Let me go as wide as possible and then go in for an all-out attack on 8. Hopefully Riptide will be enough to finish the game. It's just, you look at this judgment, and this is a card that we've talked about in the past. We like to see Lux players include this in their main deck.
Yeah, I love that it's just a thing again. Like, I always thought that was, like, when you compare it to something like Ruination at 9 mana, it just feels like such a good card. 8 mana, and it's fast speed as opposed to slow like Ruination. Feels like it can get a lot of work done. We do see the House Spider come down, though, and we'll see if... basically, he either has to burn mana on the side of Chenia, or play a naked Radiant Guardian, which I don't think you ever do here. He could also go for the Star Shaping.
I don't actually hate the idea of a naked Radiant Guardian because I don't think you're really ever going to find yourself in a situation where you get down both of them activated.
Feels so yucky, though. So poo-poo. It just does not feel good at all.
We always talk about cards like Radiant Guardian where it's like, oh, worst case, it's a 5-mana 5/5. And I've never...
That's not bad.
Maybe once or twice, but for the most part, I've never seen someone play a naked Radiant card. Nobody is satisfied with that. The perceived value on the card is too high for anyone to feel good about playing that as a 5-mana 5/5.
Listen, here's my argument. If people are willing to wait out 10 cards being played for a submersible, we can wait out a unit dying to get this Radiant Guardian down, okay?
That's what you think.
Doesn't look like it's going to happen here, but we'll see if... We'll see if we do get a Naked Guardian, if we get one that actually is triggered. This turn is going to be really awkward for Icarus too, right? Same deal. You play a Death's Hand, Radiant Guardian hits the field. You play a Flock, Radiant Guardian hits the field. I think you're kind of just forced into playing Swain, if anything. He does opt to pass priority back over for the time being. I really feel like this entire game right now is predicated on a Radiant Guardian stare down. Like, both players know Radiant Guardian is a thing, and nobody wants to commit one way or the other.
My concern for Icarus is that once your opponent does get down that Radiant Guardian, it's almost certainly going to happen before you get your Riptide Rex down, unless you throw it down onto this Leona, which seems a little bit weird. And that Radiant Guardian has a good chance of just eating up most of the Riptide shots.
Yeah.
At this point, I think I'd like to play a little bit more for the Swain Leviathan.
Yeah, I mean, you already have it set up in hand too. It's so. So this is another one of those decisions where it's like, what is 100% the best decision, right? I mean, you're going into turn 8. You can play the Riptide. You could also go into turn 8 with a Swain on board, followed up with a Leviathan. I mean, there's a lot of different options for Icarus here. It's going to be interesting to see which route he actually decides to take. Still not killing anything, notably, on the blocks. So that is still a thing. That's still happening. I feel like we just see the Swain here. And
Yeah, I mean, I could see Dreadway deckhand, but I do think I like Swain a lot more.
I am curious as to why he didn't block with one of the Spiderlings. I feel like you might as well. I don't... Is there any way that you're able to kill a unit on the side of Chenia if you block with the Spiderling? I don't think so. It would have saved you life, right? So...
I don't think you're super concerned about your life total.
And I feel like, well, my biggest concern right now for Icarus is like he actually doesn't have a lot of room on his side of the field, right? So he only has enough space to play one more unit. If he wants to get, Riptide or Leviathan down, he will be maxed out. And we do actually see the naked Radiant Guardian come down. So, wow. Okay, so he waited it out. You know what? Icarus probably is feeling super rewarded right now. Like, oh man, okay, finally, I don't have to play around it. But he might get baited now into removing something, and we could potentially see a Radiant Guardian come down on the following turn.
I think I would like to see a Ravenous Flock fired off here onto this Badger Bear, just because we actually, I guess I'd prefer it onto the 3/2 just because the bear does kind of stay open as a Ravenous Flock option. They're both going to be 3/2s anyway, so throw it down onto that shield bearer. Point is, my Swain is only sitting at 4 out of 12. I really want to push that additional 4 damage towards my Swain level.
Yeah, this does a lot of work to do that. This and Noxian Fervor, man, they just are both awesome ways to get Swain leveled up. I haven't seen any Noxian Fervors in this deck yet, so I'm not sure if he's going the more aggressive route playing that card. So we'll see. Possibly a little bit later if he does draw one. But now going into that dreaded turn 8 about to happen. We'll see if it's Riptide or the Leviathan. I imagine. Ooh, that's really close. I part of me wants to just say I imagine Riptide because you know what? Turn 8 Riptide just sounds great. But we already have a Swain on the board, so Leviathan just feels like it would just get so much done.
This could be really awkward for Icarus. One of the reasons that you hang back these Spiderlings from blocking is so that you have enough attackers to guarantee that you can activate the Riptide Rex without using something like a Death Hand ineffectively, just to get the plunder off and, get that down before a Radiant Guardian can come out. But there's a Judgment in the hand of Chenia, and he could full clear the board. Wouldn't be able to get the Radiant Guardian down, but I think he's going to feel fine with that trade if he can get the entire board of Icarus cleared out here.
The moment of truth is upon us. We'll see which 8-drop hits the board, if it's even an 8-drop. We could start with the Death's Hand to proc the Riptide to get started here, which does not level the Swain. However, I think the Riptide itself, after it's played, will actually level the Swain.
I'm hard-pressed to imagine Riptide not leveling the Swain.
Is there anything in this game that Riptide doesn't level? You got everything. Ezreal, Swain, all of them. They all level thanks to Riptide.
You hear that, everybody? Ezreal and Swain, the only champions in the game.
That's it.
It doesn't level a soul.
Oh man, damn it. Actually, that's only 17. Well, it was close. He tried.
Yeah, he did his best. We can't expect him to do everything.
So we still are playing around the Radiant Guardian here, not allowing it to hit the field with Tough, which we have 2 in hand now. We have 2 in hand on the side of Chenia, so we might actually be forced to play a naked one to prevent this Riptide from doing too much damage.
And this is sort of an awkward situation, just because the Death's Hand doesn't set any of these up for to an even amount, so you are still going to take 2 shots to finish off this Leona. I am a little curious how this works out, though. I believe that because all of the Riptide stacks go on this, or all of the Riptide effects go on the stack separately, Swain's going to level up after the first Riptide thing, and then any additional bullets that hit face are going to stun this Radiant Guardian. / Leona, depending on, when they die and all these things.
Bullets, Boulevard?
Yeah, bullets.
Excuse me. This is a cannon barrage. Okay, these are cannon
And what is
balls.
a cannon? What is a
No.
cannonball but a big
Whoa,
bullet?
whoa. There's a big difference between a bullet and a cannonball. Let's be real.
No, there's not. Look at Bullet Bill.
Yeah. Bullet Bill. Jesus, Boulevard.
Bullet Bill's just a big bullet cannonball. Comes out of a cannon. It's I've connected the dots. I have discovered the secret to the universe.
So actually, no naked Radiant Guardian is coming down. We're actually just passing back over. So no matter what, Chenia is just like, you know what? Damn you, Icarus! I will get a Radiant Guardian down this game, and this basically forces Icarus's hand at this point. We will see a Radiant Guardian hit the field. That kind of sucks that the Leona doesn't get hit.
It's not the worst thing in the world. I would rather the Leona not get hit than get hit down to a 3-1.
Does that actually make this... there's no challenge or anything. I was going to say, does it make it lethal because the Leona is stunned, but I don't think that's actually going to matter just because of lifesteal.
I think the reason that Chenia passed without playing a naked Radiant Guardian is so that now he can get down the leveled Radiant Guardian alongside the Concerted Strike, so he can block the Swain with the Radiant Guardian, kill the Riptide Rex with the Concerted Strike, and gain 10 life.
Yeah, and that is one of the reasons why we've seen Icarus play around Radiant Guardian all game, because even if you just get one on the field, it doesn't feel like it's just one. It feels like your opponent just went from 0 to 20 health in one turn, which is what it's looking like is going to happen here.
I'm curious that based on the attack order that Icarus throws out, I think it would be incorrect to attack this way, but I think it is actually possible for... Okay, yeah. If the Swain had been even one more unit to the left, we could have actually just Pale Cascade blocked the Swain, taken the rest of the damage, and survived at 1. Then we go for Star Shaping in response to any kind of damage that Icarus throws out on the following turn, and maybe we try and go from there. But I do think with this attack order, you have to go for the...
well, you just changed it.
Yeah, with this attack order, you have to go for the Concerted Strike. Oh, I really thought we were going to go block onto the Swain. Okay, no, so we're going to actually kill the Swain with the Concerted Strike, and then
yeah,
block
I think
this. Oh.
Yeah, all right. I think so. Chenia is just kind of reorganizing everything to see what his best option is, probably utilizing that eye there a little bit. I do tend to like what you mentioned with blocking the Swain and then getting rid of the Riptide, but it looks like he wants to prioritize the Swain, possibly to prevent something like Leviathan coming down. God,
this is still a scary situation for Chenia. The Radiant Guardian is still going to be open to something like a Ravenous Flock, and I don't think you really want to use the Star Shaping to heal that up out of range of it. Maybe we just use the Pale Cascade. Maybe our entire turn is just going to be Star Shaping face Pale Cascade onto the Radiant Guardian in order to dodge out the Ravenous Flock. But that does mean a Leviathan gets to come down on our opponent's side, or Riptide Rex number 2.
Yeah, unfortunately, as it currently stands, though, no easy way to trigger Riptide number 2. I mean, we have TF, but unfortunately, never going to be able to get both of those off in one turn. So we'll see how Icarus is able to potentially trigger that in the next couple of turns here. What do you pick here? Man.
I would have to...
Golden Sister? I feel like you pick the Sisters.
I feel like you never take Warrior, but I can definitely see an argument for Written in Stars. If you can get a Lux online with this hand, you have a pretty good shot at trying to get your way back into the game. The problem is that if you hit Leona or Aurelion Soul, it's kind of a dead card. Yeah, I think you have to go for Sisters here.
Yeah, and it's so funny, right? Because I feel like Warrior is always a consideration. You're like, wow, that's a 5/5 with Challenger. That would be helpful right now. But it's never quite as useful in any particular situation as something like Golden Sister or a lot of the other options, really. We do see the Golden Sister picked up here on the side of Chenia. We'll see if it does work for him. And it probably will. Now you're going to have 2 lifesteal units. This is going to be enough to at least get you more towards the later part of the game. But kind of needs an Ace Soul. That's kind of this deck's win condition. Still don't have it.
So we just throw down a Leviathan here, right? There's no real thought behind that one.
What, picking the Golden Sister?
No, just throwing down Leviathan.
Oh, yeah. You just, yeah.
Sets us up for the Riptide next turn, gives us a really good blocker onto this Radiant Guardian.
Yeah, if we had an activator for Riptide, maybe you consider playing that and then playing the Riptide, but With the tough unit on the field, I don't even think you ever play the Riptide. I think that you have the Ravenous Flock, you have the Leviathan, just makes sense. This, unfortunately, is going to prevent the Ravenous Flock, which feels so bad. So bad.
Show me Concerted Strike. Oh, Pale Cascade number 2. That's actually not terrible. This is going to be a big life gain turn on the side of Chenia. I mean, you have to. I guess you don't have to block this with your Riptide. You probably just let your opponent hit you with this massive 7 attack lifesteal unit.
Do you want to risk? You can heal it with Star Shaping, but it's still going to die to the Riptide block. So do you ever actually attack with the Radiant Guardian and risk it dying?
I mean, if I don't do it now, then I potentially just get Riptided again next turn, or I risk it getting stunned out by a Swain if my opponent does throw down the Leviathan here. I feel like I need to take the life gain that is sort of on the table in front of me.
Yeah, before.
Especially if like my opponent has to lose their Riptide for it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you, because if you do get this Leviathan coming down and Swain hits the field next turn, yeah, all these things, they feel so good, but things like Sejuani, things like Swain and Leviathan, it's something to be said about how they can just completely shut down a strategy, because once they hit the field and their engine is going, there's not much you can really do about it. So, wow, okay. We're going to see a Twisted Fate come out. Oh, God. This is going to feel so bad if he plays the second Pale Cascade. Oh, my God. Please don't do it.
I think the second Pale Cascade makes a little bit more sense than the Star Shaping.
I mean, you get the draw. You need the draw for the Aurelian Soul right now, right?
I'm trying to think if it would have been better to play the Dreadway deckhand first and then overwrite one of these Spiderlings and go for a red card.
Okay, so actually this means that it can't get blocked by the Twisted Fate now. The Pale Cascade means that if you went for an attack with the Radiant Guardian, it could get blocked out by the TF. So I don't know if that's maybe the consideration that was made by Chenia here. But it's still going to get stunned. So can't attack, can't get any of that sweet lifesteal. And now we're going to go into turn 10 with still no Aurelian Soul.
And not getting down the Leviathan here is super awkward, because once again, we're in that situation where we actually can't activate Riptide Rex this turn because our opponent has a Judgment.
I'm really interested to see when this Judgment gets used, because one of the things with Judgment is that it does have a very specific kind of time in the game that it needs to be used. And with it being 8 mana, obviously it's kind of hard to keep 8 mana open and not have your opponent be able to play around it. One of the problems with Ruination as well. And not only that, you need to have your opponent commit a lot of followers, a lot of champions and units to the combat for it to actually get value. So we'll see if Chenia is actually able to get some value here in the next few turns with his Judgment.
I mean, this Riptide Rex attack is cool, but realistically, at the end of the day, the only thing you're doing is getting that Solari Priestess off your opponent's side of the field, which I don't think is impactful enough. I understand not playing the Leviathan because you're scared of Concerted Strike. Oh, wait, no, I don't. Because how in the world are we ever going to get the Concerted Strike out of our opponent's hand except for the Leviathan? It's one of those cards where you just can't play around it. You don't have anything available to you that's going to bait it out. You're not going to be able to put your opponent in an awkward situation where they're below 5 mana and you still have 8 mana to get the value out of this card. You need to just search that Swain up, get that Swain online, and go from there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's basically why Concerted Strike is in this deck, right? Like, it's to remove things like Leviathan. We do see the Riptide Rex attack come out, though. Going to get blocked out here by the Radiant Guardian. Pale Cascade not going to be able to save it. Judgment, obviously not a good option either, just to kill the single lone Riptide. So I think that overall, I think that Icarus kind of won that trade there. You do get rid of the Radiant Guardian, but we do see another Radiant Guardian in hand on the side of Chenia.
Yeah, I'm a little confused as to why we didn't go for something like blocking with the Solari Priestess and then getting down the second Radiant Guardian. And now even starting off our turn, leveling our Leona, we can't even bluff Concerted Strike anymore, because if we play the Radiant Guardian or anything that's going to be able to kill the Leviathan, we're down below 5 mana. And I don't think, that Icarus is necessarily going to respect something like Pale Cascade into Concerted Strike. So I can't imagine there's a universe where we don't play this Leviathan now.
Man, you just really want him to play the Leviathan, huh?
I mean, it's the win condition of your deck.
I'm not gonna lie, I've kind of been waiting for this Leviathan to come down as well, and for some reason, it's just not being played. It'll get there. It'll get there one of these days. Maybe he'll play. I mean, you can't play Riptide. You can't.
Right.
Zap doesn't really. It doesn't get you the attuned mana. Dreadway Deckhand does pretty much nothing right now. Yeah, it has to be Leviathan now, right? Okay, yeah, there we go.
So your opponent has 2 unknown Celestials, and even if you're worried about something like Comet or Supernova, you know, there's no other card that they're going to use it on than Leviathan. And because Leviathan does get on-cast value, you need to get that on-cast value, get that removal spell out of your opponent's hand, and then start to play towards the Swain.
Well, there's 3 damage getting poked into the Leviathan. We're gonna. Wow. Okay. That was a pretty snap call to play. Yeah,
he's going for lethal this turn,
Yeah.
but I think this is where the Riptide comes out, and that should be able to clear up enough of the board, at least, that the Scourge doesn't kill us.
The issue with the Scourge is that bad boy can suck up 5 Riptide hits. So depending on RNG, all right.
Okay, things looking pretty good. Yeah, clearing out 2 units should be enough to save
Mm-hmm.
Icarus this turn.
Yep, we should be okay here. We'll see what Chenia decides to do in response. This is, I mean, so is this where, oh no, there's still no mana for Judgment. See, this is, I think, why we've seen so many people, you know, in the past and in previous patches stray away from Judgment. Look how long Judgment has been in hand. And honestly, think back through the entire game. At what point was there even really a good spot to use Judgment and get decent value out of it?
The problem was Icarus played around it, because on the last turn, I think it was pretty reasonable, if you knew your opponent wasn't running Judgment, to go for an all-out attack with all of your 1-health units that have been on the board for pretty much ever. You know, push just 1 damage at your opponent's face, get that Riptide Rex down, and clear out most of your opponent's board. But instead we went in only with the Riptide because we were afraid of the Judgment.
Yeah, and we see the Leviathan gonna get pulled here by the Scourge. Elusive attacking, everything else has Overwhelm. It's funny, we were just talking about this earlier, like, why does this even give everything Overwhelm? This is insane. But I mean, this is actually interesting, right? I feel like most people, when they play Aurelion Sol, it's okay, the win condition is Aurelion Sol. Okay. And I don't think we've ever actually seen somebody go for a like Scourge or Destroyer win condition very often. So if we are able to see Chenia somehow pick up a win here with this Scourge, that'd be pretty cool. I mean, we still haven't even seen an Aurelion Sol the entire game. We're far past turn 10.
All right, to be fair, I feel like every time I see an Aurelion Sol come down, the actual win condition is the Great Beyond. It just gives you a 0 mana Great Beyond, and you're like, yeah, here's this like 15 attack elusive with Spell Shield.
And let's see. So that's going to put Icarus down to 5 here.
How close is this Twisted Fate to leveling? Thank you. 3 out of 8. That's nowhere near where I thought it was.
I was going to say, it can't be too far. I mean, we have 2 more coming with the Zap Spray Fin and the draw. That'll put it at 5. I mean, he can really just only hope and pray that he draws another TF at this point if we are going to get it leveled the turn after next.
I don't even know that leveling TF is going to be enough to actually get this one done. It would in this exact scenario, because the red card, gold card should be able to kill the Scourge. Oh, that Lux is a really big pickup for Chenia, especially with that Hush in hand. But a salvage, we could see the TF level here, I guess.
I was thinking draw another TF into like pick a card, but salvage does the job. He's at 4. He could actually, if he plays Zap and salvage next turn, will be able to level the TF. Is TF a round end or a round? No, it's when you draw the card. So Hush.
Yeah, it's when you draw the card.
So Hush can't prevent TF from leveling. He's attacking.
No, but this Lux can. This looks like the Judgment's finally going to get value, SJW.
Why do you do this? Why? Why do you attack like this?
So, because you have Noxian Fervor and all of your opponent's units have 3 HP, you don't have to respect Judgment anymore. We have the Pale Cascade as the answer out of Chenia, but we have the Death's Hand backup out of Icarus as well.
Okay, so if let's see, is that 9 mana? Okay, so he actually, the Death's Hand and the Noxian Fervor will be able to kill the Silver Sister.
See, this is interesting to me that we went for the judgment on the Silver Sister instead of the Scourge, because with the Scourge we could bluff Star Shaping.
Yes. Yeah,
I don't
especially
think
sitting
it
on 5
matters.
mana.
I don't think it matters a whole lot because no matter what, I think Icarus is going to be throwing this Noxian Fervor
Yeah,
onto
you
this
have
Silver
to.
Sister.
Yeah, you can't play around that at this point. So I think this is actually going to go in the favor of Icarus. And man, I feel like I've butchered this. I feel like, you'd think I hate this card. I actually like Judgment, but we have finally come upon a time where we can use this card and seemingly get good advantage, although it's just a bunch of 1/1 tokens, so it's really not that great. But on top of it costing 8 mana, on top of it needing to be in combat with multiple units, it can also get negated if the unit that you're judgmenting gets destroyed, which is what we're going to see here. And it just feels so bad to have that plan, especially you even have the backup Pale Cascade to save the unit. It's still not enough.
Here's where things get interesting, though. You could have let the Silver Sister die and then gotten down Radiant Guardian and gone for a Scourged up Radiant Guardian attack next turn. Now, instead, now you are going to get blown out by the second Death's Hand. Granted, you would have had to put your opponent pretty much on top decking to removal spells, so I definitely understand going for the Pale Cascade. It's just, I think that there is a universe where maybe you did win the game with this Radiant Guardian next turn. And hanging on to the 11-3 makes sense. The Judgment onto the Silver Sister, because you'd rather your opponent remove that than the Scourge, because the Scourge is your best option for lethal here.
There's no way Icarus doesn't play this Death's Hand, right? Okay. I got scared there for a second. I'm like, you have to play this card. Come on. And yeah, that's...
And this does mean that we've got a potential lethal depending on what Zap Sprayfin can pick up next turn.
Well, more importantly, unfortunately, not only was it the elusive unit that was chosen for Judgment, it was also the unit blocking the TF, which I think is another mistake. Yeah. So I don't think you should have... I think you should have blocked the TF with the Solari Soldier. That way the TF doesn't live. And now, yeah, this TF is going to live.
The TF would have killed the Solari Soldier.
Yeah, but yeah. Sorry, so the TF would die. So they would trade.
No, it has quick attack.
Oh, that's right. He has the attack token.
Yeah,
right?
you would have had to block it with the Destroyer.
The Destroyer, yeah. Okay. So yeah, he should have lined up the Destroyer.
The Scourge.
Yeah, we promise we know these cards, everybody. These freaking Celestials.
So the earlier Celestials, like their pictures line up with them, and then like 7 through 10 are just these cosmic beings that have like, just dumb sound. The Destroyer, the Great Beyond, the Scourge. Like, how am I supposed to line up that picture?
Yeah, like
that name.
We can guess Comet and Meteor Shower. Like we don't even need to know the card name. We can just guess that.
Is there? Oh no! So this is so awkward because Daybreak exists. I was wondering if there's ever a universe where you hush the Twisted Fate to start the turn to prevent it from leveling up here, and then you go for a kill onto it. The problem is you need Daybreak if you want to play this Solari first, and if you play the Lux here, you need all the spell mana available to double hush for the laser. But we're just going to see the Zap Sprayfin come out instead.
And it's so awkward because I've had this thought so many times. It's so awkward that you can't play a unit and then like instantly play the burst spell. Like, I'm sneaking in there. I got this. And unfortunately, you need the priority to play that burst spell, and that gives the little tiny window that he's going to need to level up this TF. So hopefully he realizes that and plays this Zap Sprayfin on the side of Icarus.
I mean, so here's where things get weird for Icarus. Scourge plus Lux is currently representing lethal. If you level the Twisted Fate, do you just die to this Lux Overwhelm? Because the gold card is going to stun the Scourge, which is the only unit on your opponent's side of the field that won't have Overwhelm. So maybe you do have to go for the Make It Rain to actually start things off and see if you can kill the Scourge first.
Yeah, it's a good point with the overwhelms there. I think you're right, and I think he's actually realizing that now. And not only that, it could have potentially gotten rid of the barrier on Lux. I mean, obviously that's not the case, but we are going to see it hit the Scourge at least. So thank God for that. Which honestly, that was that's a toss-up too. I mean, there's 3 units on the board. It was not guaranteed to actually hit the Scourge there. So unfortunately, not going to be able to level up the TF instantaneously here. Just going to play the Make It Rain to survive. We might still see the Zap Sprayfin come down. I mean, Do we definitely see the Hush now ×2 just for the sake of getting a laser?
I mean, it is a little awkward. I think that if your Scourge didn't die, then the 6-mana Remembrance is not a bad option to try and go for that lethal, especially if you get something like the Moose. Now you're kind of in a situation where that doesn't actually level the Lux. You need double Hush to get that done, and I think you need double Hush in order to actually, have a chance in this game. You need to get the Twisted Fate off the field. You might as well Hush the TF. So I do think there's a pretty good. There's no reason not to go for the double Hush here and just laser that Twisted Fate before your opponent can get that draw off next turn.
Yeah, and I do think it's really the only. Technically you could invoke and get a Celestial card, but I don't think that really does anything for you.
You can't. You didn't Daybreak it.
That's Daybreak. So
yeah.
And the Remembrance, unfortunately, Lux is nowhere on her progress to leveling up. So the Remembrance is actually short of leveling up the Lux here. An attack, I guess the attack kind of makes sense. I'm trying to, in a world where you're not thinking your opponent has draw in their hand. You're thinking, okay, this TF's going to level next turn. Do you open attack? Or not open attack, but just regular attack.
I guess it doesn't matter too much. It's not like my opponent's ever actually going to block with the Twisted Fate. And Zap Sprayfin is the only card in the deck you'd be playing around here if you are going for the proactive double Hush onto the laser, just because, there's no other draw in the deck that isn't burst speed.
Yeah, and I feel like you're not ever really playing around Zap, unfortunately. That's just not a card that you... he might have thought about it, but I don't know. Zap, when I think of cards that I play around, Zap is not... that does not ever come out of my head. Wow, yeah.
But now, we have to see the Hush onto the Twisted Fate. Otherwise, we get to see a lethal actually with the... And actually, we just see lethal here anyway for Icarus with the Barrel and the Make It Rain.
Yeah, and no units are going to be... Well, we're going to have the Remembrance unit, but it's definitely going to hit face. And is there any... No, doesn't matter what 5-cost unit. He's always going to die. That's... Wow, so very interesting end to this game. This was not the way I expected this game to go. The TF Swain deck does end up coming through in the end, though, and I think that just, again, speaks to the power of this deck. We've seen it have so much success in NA, so much success in EU, and now even in Korea. We haven't seen a lot of it today. We've seen a lot of this Aurelion Sol deck, and then it finally comes up against TF Swain, and this is the deck it has the problem with, is the TF Swain.
Yeah, this is pretty par for the course. We see the Twisted Fate level against Targon, and then the game immediately ends. Sure, the level Twisted Fate had absolutely nothing to do with that, but we still saw it.
Yeah, it's weird. You'd think, we always talked about how Misfortune leveling was always a sign the game was going to end. You'd think that Twisted Fate leveling means the game is probably going to end, but it actually is not guaranteed. It's definitely good to have a level Twisted Fate, don't get me wrong. But there is ways of you just deal with the 3 cards that come out that turn, then you kill it, and it is what it is. I've seen that happen plenty of times, but yeah, didn't really do anything to help this particular game. Throw it out. There we go. There's the quick decision.
Yeah.
All the other ones took a little while, but this one's nice and easy. Hit and face for 2. And wow, we are going to see Icarus take that one home there after that was a long, grueling game. Woo!
All right, so this looks like a run back on the Lux Swain, or not Lux Swain, geez, the Lux ASOL deck, and then I guess discard aggro here on the bottom.
Yeah, discard aggro. So another, actually, okay, because we are just once again seeing Aurelion Sol, because it seems like every game we're casting now, we're seeing some sort of Aurelion Sol or take on the deck. We have not really seen any aggro today. What we do see is the sweet, sweet glasses, again, are back. And on the side of, that's Joonjjeolee, right?
Yep.
Yeah, Joonjjeolee with the glasses. Almost as good as the hair from yesterday.
Maybe.
I still like the hair.
You haven't seen the face cams from match 2 yet.
Oh, wait, what? Really? It gets better?
So, I did have to skip ahead so that we could find the timestamps in order to start the games, but yeah, I'm not going to spoil anything, but you'll have a treat a little bit later on.
Yes, that's what I like to hear.
So this LuxSol deck, we haven't really seen it play against aggro too much. They just haven't really been lining up those matchups too often. This is where the Solaris come in big, being able to Star Wars decks like these. I don't think the advantages are going to necessarily work out in the favor of the LuxSol player. I think that we're really just looking for Jinx removal. We do have it with the Concerted Strike, and that's really what we're looking for here. Although there is a wide board going to be set up on the side of Joonjjeolee, which will play into that crowd favorite. Almost forgot his name there. Almost.
I know, right? We have all these Celestials we're dealing with now. The older cards are like, wait, people play that still? But, yep. And we see on the side of Joonjjeolee, Poro Cannon, my favorite card of the new set. Love to see it. Love that this card is in discard aggro. And we'll see if it's able to make an impact here.
Oh, watch this Hush come out onto this crowd favorite SJW. I'm going to look away from the screen. I can't watch this happen. Yeah, my boy Vizid doesn't deserve this.
Even able to get the Grizzled Ranger down in conjunction with the Hush, that's going to feel really bad. It's kind of same feeling like when you attack with an Ezreal and then your Ezreal gets blocked after it's hushed. It's painful. It's very painful.
So it looks like we elected not to play the Grizzled Ranger, and I'm wondering if we're going to go Hush onto crowd favorite and Draven in order to be able to pick off both of those units.
I feel like that's probably the best thing to do. That doesn't make sense at all. I was gonna say,
yeah, I'm not sure.
You could even hush the Astute Academic to like get the trade and keep a unit, but I do like hushing the Draven too. Like that just seems to make sense.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure why we didn't get down the Grizzled Ranger. I guess we're going for the Remembrance play and just kind of hoping that we get something good. I mean, if this is a Radiant,
going with the Remembrance play here.
So Swiftwing Lancer, honestly, not the worst hit you could have gotten. I actually think the Moose might have been one of the worst hits in the scenario, which sounds really weird. Cavalry wouldn't have been great either, actually. But yeah, Swiftwing Lancer, probably a decent middle ground. I think that Screeching Dragon would have been very good. I think that Radiant Guardian obviously would have been best case scenario, but you can't be too dissatisfied with what you did actually end up hitting here. This is where things are going to get a little bit awkward. You know, do we play the Grizzled Ranger? Do we hold the 5 mana for a Concerted Strike onto the Jinx? We'll have to see.
Yeah, and for the time being anyways, looks like he is going to get that Draven picked off. Playing the Astute Academic, I imagine, going to go in pretty wide on this next turn here. Thinking about playing this Draven. Interesting. Lots of things to discard. I mean, we have the Jury Rig. We have 3 axes. There's ways to level up this Jinx. I feel like we go Draven now, play Jinx next turn, and just go into trying to level up Jinx next turn.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because your opponent doesn't have any mana to deal with the Jinx right now. Okay, so we are just going to go with the Draven. This is a little bit safer. I am a little bit worried, though. I wouldn't have hated the idea of actually getting the Jinx down just to level it, solely because our hand kind of sucks, and I would like to draw 2 cards next turn. And I don't really mind getting rid of an entire hand of axes and Jury Rigs and Poros to get that done.
Yeah, even if I had an Augmented Experimenter right now, like if I had to discard 6 axes, totally cool with it. Like it's not really a big deal. And we are going in for the attack without the Jinx yet, so we'll see if we do go for this Jinx level up. I think we can still do it with the cards in hand.
I'm trying to figure it out because we're going to get an axe here as well. I'm like 99%. Oh, no. I'm like 99% sure we can get it done. I haven't totally mapped it out just yet, but I'm hard-pressed to imagine we can't. And my opponent is pretty likely to play the Radiant Guardian here, so we will be safe because Nongu doesn't have a single combat, but if he did, I believe the game would end almost immediately.
Wow, that bad, huh? Yeah,
I mean, so if you play a Radiant Guardian here and then you single combat my Jinx after I empty my hand, I'm left with this Draven, a couple of small units. You still have a Radiant Guardian. You're up to 13 life. Mm-hmm. I think that'd be pretty close to GG.
Yeah, I mean, that's usually how this goes with aggro matchups, right? Like once you get any sort of that lifesteal that hits the board, you're kind of SOL at that point. And even after this attack too, I mean, we are going to be able to see this Radiant Guardian hit the field on the side of Non. So we'll see if that is able to get anything done with possibly Concerted Strike on the following turn to get Non back up to pretty full health.
All right, so we're going to discard this last Draven to the last Axe, play the Poro, play the Jinx, get her leveled, have a good time. Oh, and Border Lookout created by the... Oh, Border Lookout.
The best elite in the game. Oh, yeah.
You should have stayed inside and let the Swiftwing Lancers, let the big boys come out to play, but no. Got Border Lookout.
What? You got a problem with Border Lookout?
I have so many problems with Border Lookout.
Listen, it's one of the best 4 health 2-drops in the game.
I would shove that guy in a locker. Like, we're in the Demacio barracks, and he's like, oh, hi, Boulevard. And I'm like, what's up, bud? And just shove him in one.
All right, wait. I'm confused.
Playing very respectfully of the single combat, which is... You know, not the most unreasonable thing in the world, because we do have this Whirling Death. We can actually kill... Nope, I have no idea why we didn't play the Jinx last turn. Totally lost on that one.
Yeah, especially if we're playing it now. I'm a little... I don't know. I'm a little worried, though, because we also see Guiding Touch on the side of Non here, which is just even more heal. I mean, we will see 4 damage, it looks like, from the Elusive Poros. We'll have a Rocket for maybe 4 damage. So that's 8. I mean, there is the potential to do enough damage, even with the heal of the Guiding Touch, but it's really going to depend on what we draw with this Jinx after it's leveled up. If it even makes it, because of the Concerted Strike.
Yeah, I don't think there is. And it looks like Joonjjeolee is thinking about trying to pass and see if his opponent will just let him keep the Jinx as long as he doesn't level it. And it's sort of this awkward bargain you have to make with your opponent, like, oh no, I promise I won't level my Jinx. Please just let her live. And then you try to just win the game off the back of this 4-attack quick attack unit. Nope, no handshake's going to be made today, though. We are just going to fire this one off.
Yeah. Yep, and we're going to see this Concerted Strike basically wreck the entire game plan of Joonjjeolee and, you know, win the game on the side of Non. I don't think there's really any coming back from that. That's one of the downsides of aggro. Or, I mean, all right, you can look at that as like an upside, right? Because you know the game is lost or won. Like, you don't have to, you don't have to think about it. It's just, nope, the game's over now. That's it. Yep, there's the Vision. Not often you actually see Vision played instead of discarded.
Yeah.
But the Jinx will level up and unfortunately be lost to the Concerted Strike here. I think Joonjjeolee, he knows it. Yep, he knows it. Yeah, the head goes back. He knows it's over. That's most likely going to be game. There's not much else he can do, especially with his opponent at 18. That's just way too much heal to deal with.
Yeah, even if we do see another Jinx come off the top, that Remembrance could RNG into another Challenger unit that would be able to kill her anyway on the following turn. And with the blocks lined up on the side of Nongu, on top of the fact that he has a Pale Cascade in order to get this Radiant Guardian outside of the Draven quick attack range, as well as the Star Shaping, I think it's just a little bit too much. And this is what I was talking about earlier. I think you might not be allowed to surrender in this tournament.
Yeah, because I feel like this is definitely a spot where you surrender as the aggro player. Is that actually... You think that's actually a rule? That would be...
It wouldn't surprise me, if I'm being totally honest.
You could argue that's torture in some spots. That's not
I
cool.
don't think you can.
Whoa. If you're going up against like a spooky Karma deck and they don't have like a way to win, but you have clearly like lost the game, come on, that's torture. That's definitely torture. Come on, let's be real.
I mean... Is it torture? Yes. Is it legally torture? I don't know about that one.
All right, maybe. My definition of legal is, it's pretty out there. So, yeah, we're going to see the Grizzled Ranger come through with the scout attack. This is, for the most part, this has got to be one of the biggest limbos I've ever seen in a while, especially because I imagine this will go on for at least a few more turns until it's closed out.
Yeah, because... Joonjjeolee has defenses. He can go ahead and stall this one out a little bit if he really wants to.
Oh, wait. Is this enough to
hit
do
the
it?
OK button.
Yeah, just hit OK.
Just hit OK. Understand that this ain't going anywhere. Even if you top deck a Jinx at this point, it is entirely too late. You are still unable to kill your opponent's Radiant Guardian because of the Pale Cascade.
Now, are you not allowed to surrender or just hit OK without blocking? Is that like
I would imagine you're allowed to lose the game.
It's like, all right, nobody can lose in this tournament. Well, that seems like a problem.
Now that one's torture. Yeah, we could even see the Star Shaping could even come out onto this Radiant Guardian because it's representing the same amount of healing at this point. overall, I don't think there's anything Joonjjeolee can do. Drawing Jinx at this point is entirely too late. Your opponent's going to be at 20 at the end of this attack turn. You have a couple of elusive Poros that are at 2 attack. It's going to take you entirely too long to get the Super Mega Death Rockets down in an impactful enough manner to end the game. On top of the fact that not only is there a lot of healing in your opponent's hand, this Radiant Guardian could survive. They still have the Remembrance. They still have single combat. The Jinx would die pretty much as soon as she came down. There's just a little bit too much going on. We're even going to have to use the Mystic Shot here to try and pick off this Radiant Guardian, so all of our resources are completely expended.
I mean, hey, he has a Daring Poro. I'm just saying.
Are you trying to make this into a movie scenario of Homeward Bound, but it's the Daring Poro trying to go for lethal himself?
There is one lonely Daring Poro left. Will he survive and win the game? Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z.
It's like when Squirrel Girl took down Thanos, and then shit came back the next week, and he was like, "What if it was just one squirrel versus Thanos?" That's what we're looking at here. This is just one squirrel against the cosmic horrors of the universe, and one of the strongest armies in Runeterra combined. And look at this little guy. He doesn't care. Look at him. He's got his tongue flapping in the wind, goggles strapped on, looking like a Digimon protagonist, but now the Great Beyond going to come down and actually invade the airspace that the Daring Poro is in and completely take him off the table.
Did you actually just say looking like a Digimon protagonist?
Look, I always thought Ty's goggles were tight.
Ty's my boy, all right? I miss me some Digimon, I'm not going to lie. This tournament is just so nostalgic. We're talking about Digimon. I think about Yu-Gi-Oh! Thinking of the title, The King of Runeterra. God, this is great.